Cup of Joe with Grandpa Dez. Hey, Steve. How you
Hey,
doing?
Paul.
It's Grandpa Dez.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry.
that's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. Shoot names. Paul Fontaine, as I'm sure you all know. And I'm here alongside my good friend Steve Geimer, who I guess I don't. We've been in the same place at the same time, but I'm not sure if we've actually officially met face to face. But we've done a few of these kind of things, and we talk online all the time. And you were one of the first ones that reached out, and I wanted on the show anyways, but you reached out and said you wanted to do it, so I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, I don't think we've ever quite at least introduced ourselves face to face.
Yeah,
But pretty soon, once the travel's a bit better, I think we'll be able to.
yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Like I'm planning. I know you said you're not going to Dallas for WrestleMania. I am planning to, but we'll get together at some get-togethers at the show. I'm sure.
Yeah,
And
well, um,
hang on. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah, funny thing about me not going to Dallas for WrestleMania is it's about 30 minutes south of where I live,
Yeah.
but too far for me to make that effort. So.
You're just not interested in WWE, and that's cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
get that. If it wasn't for the fact that my daughter really wants to meet Becky Lynch, we probably wouldn't be going either. So yeah, and so we're planning to do that. So what's going on? So as for those of you that don't know Steve, and you're hearing him and seeing him, probably watching this, um, you've got the English accent, but you're in central United States, well, south central United States, Dallas, or just outside of Dallas. So, what's the story there?
Yeah, so back about, over 15 years ago now, I was working for a company in the UK that sold cell phones, and I grew up in the UK. Family's still all over there, and all of a sudden there was some joint venture business partnership going on, and I got caught up in the whirlwind. And before I knew it, I was in New York City for nearly a year, and then over to Chicago for a couple of years, and then for the last 12 years, I have been in sunny Texas. So
Nice.
came down to just north of Dallas, and we settled here, and it's home. So, yeah.
Quite a different climate than the UK. It couldn't be
Yeah,
much more different, I imagine.
yeah, the climate's very different, and it's funny
Yeah.
because I get asked a lot about the change in the cultural differences and stuff. But I think going to New York, then Chicago, and then down to Dallas kind of all made it a little bit easier because it's kind of moving across a little bit. So yeah, it's home now. My kids were born here, so they're
Yeah.
as Texan as anybody else. So yeah, it's really cool.
And you do a lot of traveling. I know you mentioned that you went to the All Out pay-per-view and you're going to Full Gear next week, which is cool. We're finally getting back into the travel again. See, if it was normal times, we'd probably meet each other next weekend because Full Gear is like I hop in my car, I'm there in 5 hours.
Right.
Depending on how long it takes me at the border. But we go down to Minneapolis twice a year for my daughter's medical stuff. So before we get into this, I'm drinking water. Normally it's coffee, but it's water right now because it's getting pretty late. What do you got?
Yeah, same stuff, buddy. So
All right. And I got the Winnipeg Jets glass, as hopefully you can see there.
uh,
I'm not sure how good you're seeing me. I've done this rodeo a few times, and I'm getting frozen screens, but I assume this is all going out no problem. I assume you can see me no problem.
yeah, it's clear as
Okay,
anything.
good. Yeah, good. Yeah, and it's definitely all on my end. I'm using a cheap government computer for all my government friends that are watching this, which is probably nobody. Not that nobody's watching, but nobody from the government's watching me. Hopefully, I won't
Well,
slam them too much. So I've got. I have you watched any of the shows so far?
no, honestly,
Okay,
no.
that's fair
I
enough. Fair enough. Go back and watch them. I got a nice little playlist. They're all playlisted up, and they're all like, 10, 15, 20 minutes most. So, but the reason I mention that is because just behind me, I'm having a hard time, like right as you're staring, is that Blues Brothers poster. I just got that.
Yeah, I see
It's
that.
actually, yeah, it actually belonged to my dad and my stepmom. And then when my dad passed away, my stepmom was clearing out the house, and one of my kids wanted that poster, so they grabbed it. And so they moved out of the house they were living in, and then I get a call from the landlord, who just happens to be my cousin, and she says, they left all this stuff behind. Can I drop it off? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And like the stuff she dropped off, it was like a whole truckload of stuff that they left at the house, and that poster was one of them. So it's actually like it's I don't know if you can tell by looking at it, but it's like heavy. Like I gotta get some hammer and nails to put it up on the wall. I'll put it up somewhere, maybe just to that empty spot there. I gotta find a nice place to put it, but I really like that poster.
That's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
have this interesting where the more tired I get, the worse my eyesight gets. So
Okay.
I can tell it's the Blues Brothers, but that's about it. Yeah. So.
Well, the small writing, and you can't even see it in the thing. I just know what it says. It says, "We're on a mission from God." So, and that's my favorite quote from the movie.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie?
Yeah. A long time ago. Though.
One of the classics.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of classic movies, I chatted, last night, as we're recording this, but it'll air on Wednesday. Oh, we got a comment. What does it say? Hey, look at that. Hey, Larry, how's it going, buddy? Awesome. I didn't know if this was actually working, so there we go. So we talked to Chris last night about the movie The Last American Virgin, and yeah, and Blues Brothers is, probably won't be in the wheelhouse of what we cover, but the show I recorded for Friday is with Filthy Tom Lawler, and and I already forgot the name of the movie he wants me to review, and he said he'll come on and review it with us, and it's a Bobcat Goldthwait movie. Is it maybe called Carry On? Oh, hey, look at that. It works. Carry On. I can't remember what he said the movie was called, but I'll watch it just to get Filthy Tom back on the show. So that was a good show. We went a little longer than we would normally go, but you'll have to check that out, Steve.
Yeah,
if you get a chance.
Tell me what the movie's called that you discussed with Chris.
So it's The Last American Virgin,
Okay.
and not a lot of people have seen it, but
No.
it's it's a classic 80s teen comedy, but it's got a twist at the end that you do not see coming. So if you've ever watched a teen comedy, you know the plot, you know everything that's going to happen before it happens, except you don't see this coming. And that's why I love it so much. And the soundtrack is awesome. But as we went over on the show, the songs that we remember from the movie weren't actually on the soundtrack. So they were just, added into the movie, but they weren't actually part of the soundtrack. But they're the most iconic songs from the movie. So if you've ever seen it, you remember these. You've seen Fast Times, right? Yeah. So there's a ton of stuff, like when you watch Last American Virgin, like there's tropes. You got the nerd, you got the cool friend who's kind of a nerd too, but he's just cooler than the actual nerd. You got the hot girl that the nerd's got the hots for. He gets with her. She gets into trouble with the bad guy. Like it's all that stuff happens in Last American Virgin, but it's just the ending you don't see coming. So we get into that on the Wednesday show, and you'll have to check that out. We had a lot of fun. We had to record 3 times. So the first time my computer just kept freezing, and we ended up starting again. Then we went like 20 minutes, and then I realized I forgot to hit record. So we went one more time, and we got it. So when I decided to have you on, and we said, what's it about and everything, and I was like, whatever you want to talk about. So we've already almost been going 10 minutes, but was there anything in particular that you wanted to chat about, or you just wanted to catch up?
Well, I think it was an interesting time because it was the day before, and I know this isn't about wrestling, but it was the day
No.
before, and we were talking about recovery,
Yeah.
which I think you said that you and Mike talked about.
Yeah.
The other day.
Check that show out. I think you'll like it a lot.
Yeah, I will. And that was interesting to me as well, just from, I think, so many people having an opinion on how it works and what's happening, and that's natural, right? I mean, everybody's got an opinion on everything, especially now. But it just stuck to me because I think that's how we got connected a little more, Paul.
Yeah.
We started talking about that. I think there was a guy in our Facebook group who was newly sober and started talking about how he was never gonna have a drink or whatever again, and he was like 6 weeks in or something, and it was like, good stuff, buddy, but don't think that yet, so yeah, it was interesting to hear various things. Like I know Oliver Kopp, good friend of ours, posted something about social media and asking people's thoughts, and it was a very thought-provoking email, but talking about how social media could lead to these kind of things. And that's when I messaged you, when I was talking about how, what we learn in recovery, or most of us do, is that, an alcoholic's an alcoholic, and, the trigger word is interesting, but, you drink when your team wins, you drink when your team loses, and that kind of stuff. But so that was,
or even if it gets rained out, drink then too.
Yeah, you drink when you argue with your wife, when you celebrate with your wife. You could always find a reason. So I was interested. Was that kind of your thoughts when you looked at it as well, or what do you?
Yeah, like, so there's a couple people in the group that I've talked to with stuff like this, and it's funny how that kind of works out. And obviously you were one, and Mike was one of the other ones. And then when that stuff with Mox came out, like I had my own thoughts about it, and and I even talked with Jeff a bit, my co-host on the Dynamite show, and I don't think he's been through it like we have. So, I don't want to really like publicly shame Jeff or anything, but what it appears on the surface, is the best thing, isn't always the best thing. And what really matters is what happens personally that we're never going to hear about. So, if he's taking it seriously, if he's doing the work that you need to do, and and say whatever you want about Mox, he's a hard worker. So if he's serious about this, and if he wants to beat this, it's going to take a lot of work, but he can do it. If he doesn't want to do it, then it doesn't matter if he goes into rehab, or if he goes to AA, or if he, swears off it, it's not going to matter. Like, you got to put in the work. So we've been through that. We've done it, and we're constantly, and we say we've done it, we're never finished. Every day is a new day. It sounds like such a cliche, but it's the truth. And my road has been a little bit different. I was looking back to see, how much of it I've shared with you. I don't even want to get into what I've been in, because everybody's unique. And my thing, I don't think it would work with most people. I think I've been very lucky along the way. I've got a great wife who stayed with me. I've got a great higher power who has always been there, even when I didn't really want him to be there. And so I took a little bit of a different path that they don't even recommend that you take, but I just did it anyways, because that's how I am. But I do have my moments, as anybody in the Facebook group has heard, and you've sent me the odd message and said, "Hey, are you okay, buddy?"
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm not, and that's what we got into with the conversation with Mike was, it was actually during the All Out weekend, where I got really depressed because I wasn't there. I had a ticket to the show and I couldn't go, and I was really upset about that. And I wasn't fair. And I made the comment that I understand how people commit suicide now. Like, I wasn't thinking about doing it, but I understood, like, if somebody was felt the same way I did, but didn't have a wife, kids, a nice house, a good job, all that stuff, and they were alone and they couldn't travel, and they felt like life was fair, like, I understood it. Not saying that I would have done it, but that I understood it. And as soon as Mike saw that comment, he reached out right away. like picked up the phone and called me. And then, we had a conversation, and, and he says like, "Oh, it turns out you were okay." And I'm like, and this is like, we're talking about it 2 months later. And I said, I wasn't okay.
Yeah.
I got okay because you called me.
Yeah.
I was definitely not in a great spot. So thank you, and that's what we're here for. When you reaching out, like I think the last time you did it was just, no, I was fine. I just wasn't really commenting much in Facebook. Like I was busy. But,
Yeah.
when you see something's off, you check in with your buddies. And and you shared with me some stuff that you were going through, and I appreciate that. And we're not going to talk about that publicly, but I could tell, you there's a way you are, and you haven't quite been that way, and that's fine, and this is why we have talks. And then sometimes you try you try to get through it, or you just forget about it. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're here, and we're having a chat,
Yeah.
and having a cup of Joe, cup of water at as we get close to midnight here.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you sort of talk about that, because I've got friends, and yeah, I am going through some personal stuff right now, but which I love the way, by the way, when I told you that the idea was, hey, you want to come on the show and talk about it? Melanie Pillman, bring them on and just use the tragedy. Yes.
Well, I said, if you want to unload, or
Right.
if you just don't even want to talk, yeah. But I said, yeah, if you want to go dump on the situation, go ahead. And you're like, no, we're not going to talk about that. I was like, okay, cool.
Just messing with you. No, but you go through that as you're going through stuff, and I think a couple of people have said to me, "Oh, I would have reached out, but I was trying to give you some space," and it's just like, yeah, that's not really what I think people should do in these situations. Now, if you reach out to someone and they say, "Yeah, I'm fine. Can you leave me alone?" then that's one thing. But it never hurts just to reach out and make sure someone's okay. And I think that the challenge sometimes is we wait until we notice that something is wrong. Why don't we just shoot a text or give a call anyway, just to check in?
I shared this with Mike, and maybe it's something about Texas, but I got a couple friends that live in Texas. I can never remember exactly where they are, but it's a little bit south of where you are, and I see them in Vegas all the time. Their names are Jennifer and Troy. Maybe they'll see this. And last year during Double or Nothing, so this is like the first pay-per-view during the pandemic. I'm watching the show, and it's right in the middle of the Stadium Stampede match, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and it's like 11 o'clock our time. Like, who the hell is calling me at 11 o'clock? And I pick up, and it's a Facebook call, which is even more bizarre because I never get Facebook calls. And it's Jennifer, and I've never spoken to Jennifer on the phone. And so I pick it up, and she's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Fine. What's going on?" And I'm like, "Did you butt dial me?" And she's like, No. You know what? Troy and I are just sitting here, and we're just kind of making an effort to reach out to people and see how they're doing, during the pandemic, because everyone's isolated and blah, blah, blah. So long story short, we had this, 20-minute conversation. And over the course of this conversation, like both Jennifer and Troy, like told me they loved me, and in a friendly way. We're not doing a menage a trois or anything like that. But it's like we're really good friends. Yeah. We're really good friends. Like every time I go to Vegas, like I hang out with them. There's been a couple times when I've just been there randomly, and they're there randomly, and we just kind of go and talk, and Troy and I like to gamble together. And yeah, and so we had this great conversation, and it was just out of the blue. And it turned out that night I was totally fine, and honestly a little bit annoyed when they first called, but after it was done, I was like, I so appreciated it, and I will remember it for the rest of my life, as I will Mike's phone call, which came at a time when I really needed it. And then conversations like this, and we'll do this again for sure, because we're almost near the time I said we were going to go, and I feel like we could go another hour if we wanted to. Yeah, but so before we wrap this up, did you get any, you were talking about a crazy news item you wanted to share? Did you find anything?
Well, no, I did, but just before we step up, I just wanted to say I think that's one of the only good points of a pandemic, if you like, that's happened is the FaceTime, the Zoom, that kind of thing has become a little more normal as to where people do tend to do it a little more. So just, something that maybe is a good thing that's come out of this horrible last year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, so I did find something, Paul, and this is my. Let me see. Okay, so let me ask you first. How many apples have you ever caught in your teeth? And I'll tell you if you've got the Guinness World Record.
How many apples have I caught in my teeth?
Somebody is 15 feet away or more, and they throw an apple, and you catch it in your teeth.
That would be 0.
Same for me.
Okay.
But there's a gentleman in Idaho. It doesn't actually list his name on here, but the gentleman in Idaho who apparently he's done 200 different world records for to promote STEM education. So good calls.
Yeah.
And the latest one he did was the world record for apples. Now, they're talking smaller apples, right? So these are like this big. And someone stood 15 feet away from him. The record, apparently, because someone had done this before, obviously, was 46. And he did 49 in 15 minutes.
So so just to be clear then, because I initially I was picturing a bunch of apples at the same time. This is 49 in a row.
This is, just one after the other. And it wasn't necessarily 49 in a row. It could have been.
Yeah, it could have been like 100 and he only got 49 of them. So would you say that's more or less impressive than Joey Chestnut's however many hot dogs he's eaten in a row? Well, probably this, I think.
But
I can't even imagine doing one.
No, I can't. Because the interesting thing that came from this, and this is why it's a news article apparently, is because he didn't realize, as I didn't think of at first, in the physical damage it did to him. Now, I was thinking of the apple smacking you in the face, but he's talking about his teeth and losing teeth and biting the inside of his mouth and stuff. And it looks like he's like bladed the inside of his mouth here because this is a pretty rough picture. But so the physical torture he'd gone through to do this, but 49 apples in 15 minutes.
I will say, like, I don't have the best teeth. And
I'm from Britain, Paul.
I know. And I'm native. And so there's a thing called native teeth. I don't want to get in too much trouble, but when I eat an apple, more often than not, my gums bleed. So just from biting into an apple, like, maybe not the first bite, but, by like the 8th. And so that's why I don't eat a lot of apples. I'll generally cut them up and eat them that way. But if I'm just chomping at a thing, I'll generally there'll be blood on the apple from my teeth. And it's gross. And so 49, I mean, 49. I basically look like I was just I look like Michael Chandler did after the fight with Justin Gaethje on Friday.
You would.
Yeah. All right. So you know what? That'll just about do it. So next time you're on, and there will be next time, I want another news story, and we'll chat about something else. We've already gone almost 25 minutes. It's funny because I said these things were going to be 10 to 15 minutes, and I think there hasn't been one that's been under 20 yet. Because I have a hard time ending these conversations because I'm having so much fun. Hopefully people enjoy listening to them. Hopefully people aren't bored out of their tree. Thanks to Larry for joining us. I don't know if there's anyone else on there, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more people watching later. And it's cool to know it works. And hopefully,
I appreciate
what was that?
It.
Oh God, thank you for doing this. Glad to be there live. And it's cool to know this thing works. And you like my little professional ticker at the bottom there? Isn't that cool?
I do. Yeah. When you asked me I had nothing to put on there, so I'm glad you put something.
And then I plugged the fight game group. We got some other ones here. I got this one, Cup of Joe. We got that. We got that. So it's kind of cool. And then I had a really cool one for Filthy Tom that you guys will all see on Friday. So before we go, I like to start the show with this and end the show with this. So let's go with this. Hang on. Where do we go here? Oh, here we go. There we go. Cup of Joe with Grandpa Dez.